This is Chicago's Morning Answer.
James Rosen, nationally syndicated investigative reporter, but also one-man show.
There's a certain fondness for my De Niro. You give me all these answers, but you don't give me the right answers. So I swear to God, I'm going to kill somebody.
It's
You're very
pretty good. I know, completely.
Brilliant.
On AM 560.
You're very smart, Joey. You give me all these answers, but you ain't give me the right answer.
The Answer.
Yes, he's fun-loving, but he's also a serious reporter. And James Rosen got confab with Bibi yesterday to discuss the Mideast peace plan that has been advanced by the Trump administration.
There was reference in the plan to a 4-year freeze on Israeli settlement activity. Do you understand that to apply to both future settlement activity and existing settlements?
No, in fact, the president offers a novel approach, which is the right approach. He says the Jewish communities in Judea, Samaria, our ancestral homeland, will continue under Israeli sovereignty. Get that out of the way. The Jordan Valley, which is our eastern border, will continue under Israeli sovereignty. America recognizes Israeli sovereignty. There is territory, in addition to that, that we've agreed not to change the status quo in for 4 years in order to allow the Palestinians to enter negotiations. I hope they do. So far, they haven't.
But it doesn't apply to existing settlements.
No, it does not.
Key to the implementation of the plan, the successful implementation of it, is whether Hamas will still be there. Is the Jewish state, under your leadership, committed to regime change in Gaza?
Yes, but we're also engaged in other fronts, especially Iran. And I would say 95% of our problems, including in Gaza, stem from Iran.
And one of the arguments that was advanced by President Trump and Jared Kushner, who's been his point man on this, is what the president has been able to do is align the interests of countries that don't necessarily have diplomatic relations, some of the countries that were represented in the unfurling of this plan, around common enemies. Align the interests around common enemies, most specifically Iran. Kushner gave an extended interview to Christiane Amanpour, explaining from America's perspective the import and novelty of this proposal.
Perfect. Well, first of all, I'd like to say that today was a big accomplishment for President Trump, something that only he could have done. He met yesterday with Prime Minister Netanyahu, but also with General Gantz, his opponent, in a time of very divisive politics in Israel where they can't agree on much. He brought the country together on what has been the most divisive issue. What he's also done is we've released an 80-page detailed plan. In the past plans, you had the Arab Peace Initiative, which is a very good effort, which is about 8 lines. And then you had past proposals, which were 2 to 3 pages of wordsmith documents, really talking about high principles. He also got Israel to agree for the first time to a state, and he got Israel to agree to a map. So what you've seen today is that President Trump's built a lot of trust with the state of Israel. He's done a lot of great things that have made Israel more secure and the relationship between America and Israel stronger. And what he's been able to do today is deliver for the Palestinians a pathway to a state, a contiguous territory, and conditions where they can earn their way to their independence, their dignity, all these different things, along with a $50 billion economic plan that could make them a very, very thriving state in the future. So it's a big opportunity for the Palestinians, and they have a perfect track record of blowing every opportunity they've had in their past, but perhaps maybe their leadership will read the details of it, stop posturing, and do what's best to try to make the Palestinian people's lives better.
Well, perhaps, but of course their initial response was to reject it out of hand. For more on this, we're pleased to be joined by the aforementioned James Rosen, Sinclair Broadcast Group reporter, New York Times bestselling author of The Strong Man, John Mitchell and the Secrets of Washington. James, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Great to be back with you, Dan and Amy. Thank you.
So this is actually sort of remarkable. I mean, the timing of this, but I guess the timing of anything when you have an impeachment trial going on is remarkable. The plan that's been proposed is receiving relatively high marks, even from Trump administration skeptics, at least as thoughtful and perhaps a bit asymmetrical in terms of the normal approach to trying to advance a two-state solution peace plan in the Middle East. But it seems to be received better than one would think a Trump proposal would be received.
This is a blueprint that's 3 years in the making. And as you just noted, it has the imprimatur of the president's son-in-law, Jared Kushner. It is predicted by few to succeed. We're talking about a plan that would have to overcome 7 decades of armed conflict and distrust. The Palestinians, for their part, say that they really weren't consulted. And the fact is, we always have to remember that since 2005, the Palestinian Authority has been cleaved into 2 parts. I mean, territorially, it's always existed in 2 parts, the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. The Gaza Strip is run by Hamas, a group that the United States has designated as a foreign terrorist organization. Hamas remains sworn to Israel's destruction. So any peace deal with the Palestinian Authority is really an attempt to negotiate with 2, let's say, Siamese twins, if you will, one of which is really not interested in negotiating. An essential element of the plan is that Hamas has to go from the Gaza Strip. And that's why you heard in the clip that you played, that's why I asked the Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, in my interview with him yesterday, which was conducted at Blair House just across from the White House, if he remains committed to regime change in Gaza. He paused, but he said yes. But I then asked him, and this is not in the clip we played, you don't see that happening anytime soon, do you? And he said, well, it could happen. But that's the real fundamental impediment to this plan being implemented, is the continuing presence of a foreign terrorist organization at the head of one of the 2 capitals, if you will, of the Palestinian Authority right now.
Well, were the Palestinians consulted at all during this process?
Not really. Not in the when we talk about the process. If you want to say that it's been ongoing for 3 years, then yes, there was consultation because President Trump did meet with the head of the West Bank part of the Palestinian Authority, the head of Fatah, Mahmoud Abbas, but who is seen widely as an ailing, aging, weak, ineffectual leader. And in making his announcement at the White House yesterday, President Trump said he did secure that consultation with the Palestinians. But in more recent times, no. I think the Palestinians cut off contact with the Trump administration after Mr. Trump effectuated the relocation of the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem.
And notable in the absence, though, was Jordan, and isn't that going to be a problem moving forward if you can't get Jordan and perhaps to a lesser extent Egypt's buy-in?
Yeah, from the Israeli perspective, Jordan's opposition to the plan, as stated, was muted. It was not blasted. But Jordan's cooperation is key because, after all, they are bordering there on the Jordan Valley, and 2/3 of the Jordanian population is indeed Palestinian. You have to really step back and take a historical view of this. During Benjamin Netanyahu's lifetime, if you went back to, say, 1975, 1985, the Arab world was so united in hostility to Israel, and particularly over the central issue of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. But the last decade and a half or 2 decades has seen Iran emerge as a regional power. Some would say a regional hegemon in the Middle East. And this has united a lot of the Arab world, not only against Iran, but with Israel. And so the kind of condemnations that you would have seen of this kind of plan or of Israel generally in the Arab world decades ago, we don't see anymore. They are united against a common enemy in Iran. And so this does speak to your point earlier, Dan, about this plan not receiving, let's say, the round condemnation that it might have in times past.
I wanted to get your take on the state of play with impeachment as we're moving now to the Q&A phase of the process, and then ultimately by the end of the week, the question, the only really remaining question is whether or not witnesses will be called. The big news yesterday was the blaring headlines, at least. McConnell doesn't have the votes to prevent witnesses, but there was a subtext that developed later in the day, which is he doesn't have those votes yet. But there seems to be movement in the direction that he will have those votes by week's end. What's your handle on that?
A lot of this is going to boil down, as legislative parliamentary maneuvering often does, to a single figure. And right now, all eyes in the Capitol, where the impeachment trial is concerned, are trained on Senator Lamar Alexander of Tennessee, who is retiring at the end of his term. Because the Democrats, in order to secure the admission of live witnesses to the impeachment trial, require the defection of 4 Republican senators. Senator Mitt Romney of Utah indicated a couple of days ago that he wants now to hear from John Bolton. Senators Murkowski and Collins of Maine, respectively, edged toward the Romney position, where they had already been. And frankly, these are what you might call, with no aspersions cast, the usual suspects for this kind of defection. And so Lamar Alexander of Tennessee had previously indicated some potential openness to witnesses. And so if he were to make a formal break with that, then the Democrats would have the votes they need. But even assuming that there were to be a vote in favor of calling witnesses, that would not settle what would be the bigger question then, which would be which witnesses. And the Democrats, by insisting on witnesses, have to recognize that this could be something of a Pandora's box for them, because as much as they want to hear from John Bolton, they do not want to hear from Joe or Hunter Biden. And that could be the price exacted for the admission of live witnesses.
And speaking of Biden, this morning we're learning, this is from CNN, that Biden's people are reaching out to Amy Klobuchar's camp to join alliances before the Iowa caucuses because, in precincts where she's not viable, they want, they're worried about Bernie Sanders winning, and Biden wants the nomination because, the establishment Democrats think that he's the only one who could beat Trump. And have you heard anything like this?
Well, we could expect that if any such overtures are being made, they would be rejected by the Klobuchar campaign. Amy Klobuchar doesn't have to win Iowa in order to win or to be considered successful there. She just has to make a very good showing, let's say second or third there, to keep her campaign alive, to keep the spigot of donations pouring in. And so I don't think at this point anyway, the Klobuchar campaign would be ready to hitch itself to the Biden campaign. I think they still want to compete.
He is James Rosen. He's a Sinclair Broadcast Group reporter, New York Times bestselling author of The Strong Man, John Mitchell, and The Secrets of Watergate. James, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Oh, always great to be with you. Thank you, guys.
Take care.
Thanks. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
It's news, opinion, insight. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.